In this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that has given over 80 high-level hockey athletes automatic confidence and consistency, allowing them to reach levels like Junior A at 17, U Sports without playing Junior A, or AAA in their first year of a rep. Without politics, without an extensive network, and without betting development on endless showcases, clinics, and travel tournaments. If you're watching this, chances are hockey is more than just a sport for you. It's something you care about deeply, either because you're living it every single day as a player, or because you're raising one and watching them chase a future that matters. And you're not here today because of a lack of effort. You're here because despite training hard, doing what you're told, and paying with time, money, effort, and sacrifice, performance still feels inconsistent and confidence feels unreliable. Some games you feel confident and composed. Other games, one mistake changes everything and you spiral. For players, that shows up as hesitation, overthinking, or fear of mistakes, playing to mess up instead of playing to win. For parents, it's more subtle, but it hurts more. You can sense the pressure building from your players' body language. You can see their confidence come and go like tides. And you worry from the stands that the game your child once loved is slowly turning into a source of self-criticism and stress. Here's what almost no one in hockey explains clearly. This isn't a confidence problem, and it's not a work ethic problem either. It's an ownership problem. Here's what I mean. Most athletes are taught to outsource their development. Listen to this coach, hire that advisor, go to this camp, that clinic, these showcases. There are so many things you feel you should be doing, you lose yourself in the process and forget what it is you even want. You end up on this blind-led treasure hunt trying to find the prize without a map. And when your development is outsourced, confidence becomes fragile. Progress slows and pressure takes over. If you don't know me yet, my name's Kenny Batke. When it comes to hockey, I've lived it. I've quit from burnout. I've spent entire seasons on the IR. Across 3 years of junior and 5 years of college, I've been on teams that have only won 9 games and teams that have only lost 3. I've lost championships with less than 10 seconds in a final game. And I've won championships in 9-1 blowouts. And what all of that taught me is this. The players who reach junior A and beyond aren't the ones who want it more, or are convinced that they're working harder than everyone else. They're the ones who learn how to make confidence and consistency automatic. Over the last 3 years, I've designed, built, and rebuilt our mistake-proof confidence model that has helped committed hockey players reach goals they didn't even believe were possible before, using a structured system designed to remove mistake fear and restore ownership. And by the end of this video, you'll understand what it takes to build a mistake-proof athlete, where confident, consistent performance is no longer something they hope for, it's their new baseline. Once you have a mistake-proof athlete, you'll be able to watch games with peace of mind, knowing they're improving with intention, becoming a leader on and off the ice, and enjoying the process, rather than being weighed down by their own self-doubt and criticism. Imagine for a minute the car ride home after a tough game, not having to walk on eggshells or be careful with your words because of how your player may respond. Or dropping them off for the first showcase, and the last words you hear before they grab their gear from the car is, "Don't worry, Mom. Don't worry, Dad. I'm ready for this." And this level of confidence can become automatic. And when I say automatic, I want you to remember this. Confident players aren't thinking about their confidence. But what does that even mean? And why does confidence matter? Because lack of self-confidence kills more dreams than lack of skill ever will. Confidence and consistency are the keys to recognizing and breaking plateaus quickly, compounding growth as a person and an athlete, ascending levels, making an impact on the best teams, accessing the most opportunities, and enjoying and loving the game during the process. Now, I need to be clear. This is a system for parents of hockey athletes who are between 14 and 17, already playing AA or higher. The ones who have players who are coachable, who go out of their way to look for more feedback, and have this unquenchable thirst for improvement. So if your player is an A, B, or rec, this is not for you. Being blunt, they simply don't have the work ethic and are too prone to make excuses for our system to work. I've seen it too many times where A players think it's a skill gap to AAA when they haven't accepted the difference in commitment and work ethic. It's also important to point out that while our mistake-proof confidence model is a fast track, it is not a shortcut. So even if your player is AA or higher, if you're looking for a quick fix, some magic hack, or you're not 100% open to fully rebuilding how you approach your hockey development, you can save yourself the time, click out of this video right now. There are plenty of ebooks, templated training plans, and single session gurus all over the internet you can try. But if you're serious about building an athlete who has a long, meaningful career, isn't worried about burning out, and becomes a leader in hockey now and a leader in life later, then keep watching and I'll show you how to do just that. Now, it's not your fault. The hockey industry is riddled with confusing information that leaves parents on this hamster wheel of not knowing what to believe. Like, you've probably heard someone tell you, if you're good enough, you'll get noticed. And someone else tell you, oh, it's all about who you know. You have to know people to get anywhere. So what's the solution? I can tell you it's not more information, but a better framework. So let's dive into the only 3 things you need to build a mistake-proof athlete. First, it's clarity. Athlete must be hyper clear and intentional about what it is they want from their sport and why they want it. And this is for 3 primary reasons. First is that without clarity and intention, players end up going through the motions, clocking in and out like shift work, simply accomplishing tasks for the sake of completion. And when players lose clarity, they can't play free, they put more pressure on themselves, and they make more mistakes. Lack of clarity becomes a trap as well, because the reward felt is from the feeling of completion, not the feeling of progression. So this is how you can spend months and sometimes years on the hockey training hamster wheel, until the day comes that you either aren't good enough to continue playing competitively, or you find yourself burnt out from feeling like you're in a never-ending plateau. Now, the second reason players need extreme clarity is that consistent actions and changing habits are short-term and unsustainable without knowing why they're doing them. All the resources in the world can't help the player change their ways unless they have a meaningful reason to make the decision to change every single day. This is how players get caught in the loop of trying something new, seeing results for a little bit, and then without knowing why, it seems like the results just start to fade. When progress disappears, pressure increases, confidence collapses. Third reason for hyper clarity is that when players don't have clarity, the nervous system stays on edge. This is the underlying reason for the tense body language that you see from the stands as a parent. So while we see that inability to relax as missing confidence, under the hood, it's actually directional anxiety. The voice in their head that comes up as, am I doing enough to get where I want to go? And is this bringing me closer to my goals, or is it pushing me farther away? Not having certainty in those answers creates the tension. And then effort stops feeling empowering and starts feeling like a burden. And so what we see on the surface as lack of effort or motivation, call it collapsing confidence, it roots back to not having clear direction or certainty in their actions. Haven't you seen this in your player? Like, doesn't it get frustrating watching from the stands, knowing that what you see them playing like is not who they actually are? You can tell from their body language that they're trapped in this psychological cage that keeps them from their best performance. And it eats at you not being able to do anything except watch. And the answer our players are told so often is you need to work harder. You need to compete more. But to what end? When do we realize that everyone is working hard and that hard work becomes the standard? And when everyone works hard, it becomes a battle of what we choose to work hard at. Put differently, what vehicle we choose to put our effort into. And to use a simple example, say you have one person running and one person riding a bike. They can work equally as hard, but because of the vehicle, the person riding the bike is inherently going to travel farther. I say this because I don't want to say that effort doesn't matter, but if you aren't equipping yourself with the right tools, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you are still running, you will not catch up to someone who is also working hard and riding a bike. I mean, that was one major unlock we had with my athlete, Noah. When we first started working together, it was clear he was working hard, but the path for his future for years ahead was planned by influences outside of himself. He he was a victim of borrowed goals, and his effort was being wasted because he was missing full alignment. So in a matter of just a few weeks, he got clear on what he wanted and why. Gave him permission to go all in on hockey without having to worry about a backup plan or think as far into the future as he had mapped out. And that clarity gave him freedom, and it came with an added layer of motivation. So what happened to Noah? Noah gained 20 pounds in an off season, came into camp feeling stronger and faster than ever, and went from minor hockey to junior A. Where most defensemen see their points with that jump, his point production has increased by 1.3 times. And the season is only half over. So I want you to know something important. This can be your athlete too. And right now that probably feels uncertain. You might be thinking, like, this sounds great, but I don't know if it's going to work for our situation. Every family reaches this point with the same heavy feeling, not having it fully figured out yet. And part of that uncertainty comes from a lack of clarity. But clarity is still only one piece. Because even after a player gets clear, you still see the inconsistency. You still see the tension, the swings both up and down in performance and emotion. And that's because clarity doesn't fix external chaos, which takes us to our second pillar, chaos, and correcting it. If a player's daily life is disorganized, overstressed, or physically run down, confidence will continue to remain fragile. Listen to these words very carefully, because without correcting chaos, chaos will tear down the clarity that your player has just built up and send them back to questioning themselves. Am I doing enough to get where I want to go? And is this bringing me closer to my goals or pushing me farther away? So let's talk about how to fix chaos so that your confidence stops being fragile. Now, chaos enters our life in many ways. Some people call it stress, some people call it overload, some people have just accepted it as true as taxes, and it's just the way things are during the hockey season. And on that last point, I said it before, but it's worth saying again. If you're not 100% open to fully rebuilding how you approach your hockey development, you can save yourself the time, click out of this video right now. Chaos shows up in many ways. This video covers the most common three. Chaos in your calendar, chaos in your body, and chaos in your environment. When I say chaos, I'm talking about unpredictable inputs, where nothing feels consistent enough for the body or mind to be able to settle. So let's start with the calendar. Ever looked at the week ahead and thought, I don't know how we're going to get through this week? And then 7 days later, right back to the exact same place. Same rush, same stress, same feeling of just barely keeping up. Because when life constantly feels crammed, rushed, and reactive, we shouldn't be surprised then when players struggle to show up relaxed, confident, and patient on the ice. Because how can we expect calm decision making during a game when their entire life off the ice feels scattered? If everything off the ice feels rushed, your player's nervous system defaults to feeling on edge, feeling tense. And when the nervous system doesn't settle, that's where you start to lose confidence. That's when more common mistakes show up. Now, massive key here. The solution to calendar chaos is not you as a parent taking more responsibility from your player so that they don't feel rushed and scattered. It's giving them the tools, structure, and agency to learn how to manage their own time. Because confidence doesn't come from being protected, it comes from feeling in control. I start with the calendar because it's the most visible and often the most impactful. Players Don't tell me you're too busy to train, recover, or watch video when I check your screen time and your TikTok screen time is more than 3 hours for the day. Like, it doesn't take that long to use the bathroom. But once the calendar is visible and intentional, something important happens. You can see where time is leaking, where energy is being wasted, and where inconsistency in lifestyle is quietly robbing you consistency and performance. Only then does it make sense to look at the body. Now, with chaos in the body, again, I'm talking about unpredictable inputs. Our bodies crave consistency. They seek rhythm, routine, predictability, but our mind craves novelty. That's why things like social media are so addictive. It's the promise of just one more video. And the problem there is it's not the video itself. It's what constant novelty does downstream. Late nights turn into poor sleep turns into low energy turns into rushed mornings, missed or last minute meals, and then elevated stress. And then when the body is running on inconsistency, emotional regulation disappears. So again, what we label as confidence issues or inconsistency are often just symptoms of a body that never had a chance to settle. Because a stressed body can't support calm decision making, can't support patience, and it can't manage pressure well. Have you ever watched your player lose patience or crumble in a moment where you know they're capable of more? Thought to yourself, that's not who they are. What you're seeing isn't a character flaw. And again, it's not a lack of confidence. It's the result of a body that's been asked to play from inconsistency for too long. And with a depleted, chaotic body, the mind becomes more sensitive to what's around it. Comments carry more weight. Comparisons get harder to ignore. And small things feel big when they don't need to. Which brings us to our third locus, chaos in the environment. This one is critical because it affects both players and parents. So when players are surrounded by constant noise, conflicting information, and incomplete feedback, they lose their internal reference point. And noise comes from everywhere. Social media, rankings, elite prospects, locker room chatter, constant stream of information that really just never turns off. Conflicting information shows up when different voices pull players in different directions. It might be coaches emphasizing different things. It might be parents having different perspectives, or teammates who have multiple opinions. And then layer on that, we have incomplete feedback. Buzzwords without any context, like play more poised. What does that even mean? Or evaluations that lack clear direction. Like, you're just not fast enough yet. Okay, fast where? Being told what isn't good enough without being shown how to improve it. And then each of these quietly chips away at your player's internal reference point. And then decisions take longer, hesitation sets in, tension returns, and then we see mistakes. And then mistakes spiral into lost confidence. Instead, wouldn't it be amazing to have a set of filters for your player so they knew when to listen and when to challenge? They understood the differences between information that propelled them forward, held them back, and was just a distraction. Wouldn't their game become so much better? Like, can you see how much more confident your player would carry themselves both in the rink and then in other key areas of life? As a sibling, as a son, as a student. Just like one of my athletes, Shem. Shem came to me having never made a rep team in his life. He wanted to try out for AAA. He knew how to work hard, but his environment always felt like a major roadblock. Always felt busy. Always felt like things were popping up out of nowhere and like he didn't have time to train. On top of that, he felt like politics were constantly working against him. Like decisions were being made outside of his control. So when we started working together, first thing we did was we mapped out his schedule, found where his time was going, what voices he was listening to, and then worked hard on managing stressors and organization across his whole life. Shem bet on himself when we started working together, and the work paid off. First rep team he ever made was his AAA team. And now, as a rookie in AAA, he's got an incredible plus minus. He texted me the other day. He's +4 on the weekend, never on for a goal against, and playing both sides of special teams. Shem didn't suddenly become someone else. He decided to fix the chaos around him that was dictating his performance. But chaos left unmanaged is an opening for pressure to take over again. And it's in chaotic environments like this, full of noise, confusion, and uncertainty, that a very specific type of advisor thrives. Not because they solve the problem, but because they capitalize on it. When players don't have a clear internal reference point, external certainty becomes incredibly attractive. That's when you start hearing promises like, oh, we have the connections, we know the right people, we'll get you the exposure, we'll take care of the path so you don't have to worry. And on the surface, that sounds very reassuring, especially to parents who just want clarity and to players who feel lost. But here's the part almost no one says out loud. With these advisors, you don't build confidence. Instead, you rent certainty. And the moment certainty is rented instead of built internally, ownership disappears. Because when development is outsourced, responsibility gets outsourced with it. Which means when things don't go well, the explanation becomes politics, the system, little boys club, or they didn't get a fair shot. And while it might feel comforting in the short term, it silently teaches something dangerous. It teaches your player that their future lives outside of them. And no parent signs up for that lesson. Because deep down, you know confident, resilient athletes aren't built on access, they're built on ownership. And part of fostering ownership is having a system in place that puts consistent performance on autopilot so your player can enjoy the game instead of worrying about what their next mistake is going to be. Because when ownership disappears, pressure exposes those weaknesses underneath. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, this all makes sense, but something like this must be expensive. So let's slow down and be honest for a moment. Because the question isn't about whether this costs money. The question is what you're already paying without realizing it. If you've looked at an advisor, that can cost $3,000 to $5,000 a year. And that's just access and rented certainty, not clarity or ownership. What about exposure? A single showcase can easily run over $1,000 by the time you factor registration, travel, hotels, food on the road for a weekend that may or may not move the needle. And what's the cost of not making higher levels of Junior A? Playing at a lower level of junior can cost several $1,000s a season. With the higher levels, the ones players actually want, they're often free. And then there's the cost that goes unnoticed until much later. What's the cost of not getting a scholarship? What's the price in staying stuck at the wrong level for another year? And what's the cost of your player's confidence never stabilizing? Because while those numbers don't show up on an invoice, they compound over time. And beyond hockey, there's an even bigger question. What's the value of your player learning how to manage pressure, structure their life, filter information, and take ownership of their development for the rest of their life? Because hockey will end, but these lessons don't. So this isn't about buying another solution. It's about ending the cycle of paying for certainty from the outside. Ownership isn't the expensive path, it's the corrective one. Which is why I want to go into the third pillar, creating breakthrough beliefs. Because up to this point, we've talked about clarity and we've talked about correcting chaos. Both of those matter. But even when both are in place, pressure still reveals one final thing. Because pressure doesn't change players. It exposes their thought patterns. It reveals what they believe a mistake means. Two players can make the exact same mistake, same shift, same situation, same stakes. One resets and keeps playing free. The other tightens up and spirals. And it's not because one cares more or less. It's not because one is mentally tougher. It's because they're interpreting the mistake differently. When a mistake happens, the brain asks a question automatically. What does this mean? If the answer is, I'm falling behind, I'm blowing my chance, I can't mess this up again, pressure multiplies instantly. The body stiffens, decisions get delayed, Players stop trusting instincts and then start trying to force outcomes. So confidence doesn't disappear because of the mistake. It disappears because of the meaning attached to it. And this is where most training programs fall short. It's not because they lack strength programs or structure, but because they lack mentorship. Most players are given a set of instructions. Do this, fix that, improve here. They're told what to work on, but no one has taught them how to interpret feedback and mistakes without turning those moments into judgments against themselves. And without that guidance, every mistake feels heavier than it needs to. Every dip in performance feels personal, and pressure continues to win. So that's not a training problem. That's not an effort problem. It's a mentorship gap. And the reason I focus on this is because I lived every version of the problem I now help players solve. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine a player who understands how to process mistakes in real time, who doesn't panic when things go sideways, who doesn't spiral after one bad shift or one wrong play. And it's not that they don't care, it's that they now know how to respond. Mistakes don't derail their game. Feedback doesn't shake them. Pressure doesn't rush them. What if you went one step further? They stay present, they decide faster, they never lose trust in themselves. From the stands, you can't find the tension. You see a new composure. Body language that says, I belong here. This is my game. And the most important part is that confidence doesn't disappear when things aren't going perfectly. It doesn't depend on a point streak or a hot weekend. It's stable, steady, reliable, because it's coming from inside them. Once a player learns that skill, it changes everything. Not just how they play, but how they handle feedback, adversity, pressure in every area of their life. That's the difference between hoping confidence shows up and being able to count on it. And that is where development explodes. And I want to give you a real example of what this looks like in practice, because it can happen at any point in your career. So last spring, I was working with an athlete named Nathan. Nathan came in with a clear goal. He wanted to play U Sport as a stepping stone to him going to pro. Here's the part that matters. His own agent told him it was impossible. He was too old and he didn't have the resume because he didn't play junior A. And on paper, it didn't make sense, but Nathan still just felt something deep internally. He played with friends who were already at the same level. He knew he could keep up, but the story around him said otherwise, and he started to believe it. This is where most players fold. It's not because they're lazy, but because the pressure of other people's beliefs becomes louder than their own. So instead of Nathan and I negotiating with that pressure, we locked in on the goal. More importantly, on ownership. Nathan committed as if it was already happening. And not for a day, not for a month, for a full off season. He trained all summer with intention. He took control, acted as his own agent, and reached out to coaches on his own. He searched for openings, and once he got a tryout, he registered for classes before he even had a spot. Found a place to live, and built his life around the goal with zero guarantees. Not because he was reckless, but because he understood that belief without action is just hope. And it's a treacherous hope that turns into a future regret. But in the reverse, action without belief collapses under pressure. So we needed to build both. And Nathan wasn't pretending confidence. He learned how to interpret uncertainty without letting it define him. And that changed how he showed up. Then, in the middle of September, my phone rings with Nathan's name across the screen. Coach just told me I have a roster spot. I'm staying. After months of uncertainty, after being told it wasn't possible, after full commitment with no guarantees, that call became a defining moment of what ownership under pressure looks like. Nathan didn't get lucky. He didn't wait for permission, and he didn't let someone else's ceiling become his own. He learned how to interpret doubt, feedback, uncertainty without letting it collapse his direction. And once a player learns that skill, they have mistake-proof confidence. It stops depending on who's watching or what just happened or what someone else thinks is possible or not. And it becomes something they can rely on. And that's the difference between hoping things work out and knowing how to respond no matter what shows up. So, now that you've learned the only 3 things that you need to give your player consistent performance and confidence automatically are getting extreme clarity, correcting chaos, and building pressure-tested belief systems. Isn't that amazing? Now you have the path forward to find clarity, consistency, and confidence, just like Noah, Shem, Nathan, and so many others who have applied this model. And by understanding how to build a mistake-proof athlete, you're able to set your player on the most reliable path to ascend to Junior A and beyond, while you watch from the stands as a fan with peace of mind instead of worrying about what they're thinking or how you're going to approach them after the game. And if you're wanting to learn more about how to apply this exact same mistake-proof confidence model to your teenage hockey athlete, provided they're already playing AA or higher, are coachable, and have that unquenchable thirst for improvement, then click the link in the description below, book a call in with me or my team, and we'll show you exactly how to install this proven and repeatable system into your athlete's life. So click the link below, book in a call, and we'll talk soon. Now, you might be thinking, well, what if we commit and it turns out we could have figured this out ourselves? There's nothing wrong with going and trying to figure this out on your own. Many families do try. They read more, they watch more, they download training plans, they hope the next season feels different. And sometimes pieces do improve. But what I've seen again and again is that without guidance, players end up learning these lessons the hard way, through pressure, frustration, and missed opportunities. And it's not because they're not capable, but because no one is helping them interpret what's happening while it's happening. So the real question isn't, can we try this on our own? It's how long are we willing to let our players' confidence be fragile while we figure it out? And do we have enough time to figure it out without sacrificing our athletes' goals? And from there are really only 2 paths you can take. Path A is take what you learned here and try to integrate it into your player's life, hoping that confidence and consistency becomes their new baseline, which again, it might. But as I showed you, many of these lessons rely on each other. Without every single part dialed in, the system collapses on itself. Players return to their mistake-fearing spirals, potentially making things worse by straining relationships and adding more pressure now to solve the problem. I don't want that to happen to you and your player. That brings us to path B. Your second option is to book in a call with me by clicking the calendar link in the description below this video, where I'll show you exactly how our mistake-proof confidence model can work for your athlete with absolute certainty. This means that you can start building a confident and resilient player who takes ownership of their development and never thinks about burnout or throwing away money to uncertain development again. Just like Noah, who found clarity, put on 20 pounds, cracked Junior A, and increased his point production. Shem, who went from never playing rep to clearing the chaos in his life and playing AAA with a crazy plus minus, and playing power play and penalty kill. Can you imagine the frustration? Seeing a player who was just in house 1 season ago, taking power play minutes from your player who's been in rep multiple years in a row? And Nathan, who made a U Sport team at 24 without ever having played Junior A by becoming a mistake-proof athlete. So if you're serious about helping your player reach their hockey goals, want them to learn valuable confidence and life skills in the process, book in a call down below and I'll talk to you soon. You owe it to yourself and to your team to achieve everything you want. And I'd love to help you make that happen. I'll see you on the call.